Really should try to take care of all that beforehand, huh? All right, so just so you know, if you're just now joining, we're going to be talking about mistletoe today. I've been talking about this one for a while. This is one of my favorite herbs as far as medicinal herbs go. You can disregard the red berries. That was an AI generated piece just for fun and for a title. Typically speaking, the berries are white on mistletoe. Now, what we're going to do, how I'm going to start doing this now is when I do the lives at night, we're going to do like the first 5 minutes is just going to be welcoming people that are joining in live and getting things started. So that way I don't get into something and then have other people come in late and I have to start over again. So I only do this. This is an hour a night or an hour per Sunday. Thank you for the like. Hello. Hi, Teresa. So anyway, if you want to skip ahead to 5 minutes, the 5 minute mark, then I will be getting into the actual presentation. But until then, I'll be greeting everybody. I did forget my water, so I'm going to go grab that real quick so I don't dry out. Sorry about that. All right, we have 4 people. Hey, everybody. So I had to go and get my water. We're going to be talking about mistletoe for the first 5 minutes of these lives on Sunday night. We do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those of you who are just new and just joining. Oh, yay. I think, it might have been that the cover in the back because I think it's trying to compensate for the sun. So, yeah. How you doing, Mitchell? Good to see you. Jacob, nice to see you. So for the first 5 minutes, what I've been saying, the first 5 minutes we're just going to do idle chit chat, talk about, and whatever happens to come up, and then after that we'll get into the show. This may not necessarily be an hour. I'm going to shoot for an hour, but if we don't get through an hour, then we don't get through an hour. So I have only so much information going. Wow, we already lost somebody. Talk about attention span. You're probably going to come back in a couple minutes. We're at almost the 3 minute mark. We're going to be getting started here shortly. Anybody have anything interesting they would like to cover on this? Now, this isn't very many slides, but there is a lot of information on each slide. If you want access to this, you can go to my Patreon, the Herb Guy, and where you can get this PowerPoint presentation and you can follow along with it that way. Hey, John, nice to see you. We're about 3 minutes in. We're gonna spend the first 5 minutes just doing general chat, and then that's how we're gonna do it every week that way. And then after the 5 minute mark, we're gonna get started. So that way, anybody coming in and doesn't want to listen to all this stuff, if they're watching it, they can just fast forward ahead to the 5 minute mark and get started. Hi, Sarah. Okay, Sarah, you're gonna take care of all the. You're the only moderator. See, it looks like you're the only one with a wrench there. We're at almost the 4 minute mark. We're up to 5 people. We're going to talk about mistletoe. Excuse me, that's awful rude. Trying to figure out a better way to do this. So just be patient with me. I don't really know a whole lot about the YouTube thing. I did TikTok for so long. I got used to doing TikTok. But ever since they got mad at me, I'm no longer able to do TikTok live anyway. Not for I can do it on my other TikTok. Tracy the Herb Guy, but I can't do it on this TikTok. So, my big one. So we're getting ready to get started. Got about 30 seconds here. We got 6 people. We're going to be talking about mistletoe and how it's a very interesting plant. And it's really, I say this a lot about a lot of different herbs, but when you consider there's thousands of herbs out there, if it's just one of my favorites, it's not that big of a deal. But this is one of my favorite herbs. It is so versatile, and there's so many different things about it that makes it interesting. So, I did a little bit of research throughout the week, but then I got busy doing other stuff, and so I will make sure to talk about other things later. So, mistletoe. What is mistletoe exactly? Well, it's not just a plant. It's a plant, but it's also a parasite. Now, it attaches to a host tree, and it'll attach to many different kinds of trees. It doesn't just attach to oaks. And in that respect, it has different species. There's like 1,000 different species of it. But it attaches directly into the vascular system of the tree. Now, it takes water and nutrients from the tree, and they attach by a structure that's called haustoria, which are similar to roots in the way they act, but they also provide structure to the plant, and they keep the plant attached to the host. So, and then they dig in deep, right? So they'll get down in deep inside the plant, and they'll attach, and that's how they feed. And they all look pretty much the same. They have very similar properties. And once they do attach, they don't necessarily damage the tree. When I was young, when I was little, 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, my dad would give us a 20 gauge shotgun. And we would go down in Oregon. We lived in Oregon, and we go down because we had 20 acres on the side of a mountain. And we go down and find some trees that had mistletoe in it right around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And we would shoot the mistletoe out of the tree, and whatever we could get, we would put them in Ziploc baggies and take them down to the local drugstore, and we'd sell them for $1 a bag. People get their own mistletoe for $1 a bag. Well, I don't know if it's blurry. It's not blurry on my end. From my phone, it looks just fine. So I've always been told that it sucked the life from the tree. Every tree that I've seen it on, it didn't have none of our oak trees seem to have any issues. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. If it takes up the entire tree, then yeah, it's going to take up too many nutrients. But if it's only in smaller bunches and it's not taking over an entire tree, it's not, it is a parasite. It will take away from that particular part of the tree. But the other parts of the tree that aren't affected by the mistletoe, they're going to be just fine. Now, there's more than 1,000 different species. As you can see, they grow in a big ball, and in some cases you'll see in one of the later slides, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They will take clusters, and that is a mistletoe plant. Now it's a parasite plant, but it is a mistletoe plant. It has more than 1,000 species, and each has slightly different properties depending on the tree they're in. Okay, so just like every tree has different medicinal properties, every one of the mistletoe is going to have slightly different properties. So they're going to, not only are they taking the water from the tree, they're taking the nutrients from the tree, but they're also going to be taking some of those properties from the tree. So that's going to help with how they're used. Now, they all share the same basic medicinal properties. Okay, so they all, as far as like the basic medicinal properties, that they all help with are like seizures. They're all used for cancer, microbes, so they're good for bacteria and viruses, and for immunomodulation. Now, this is not an immune boosting herb. This doesn't boost your immune system. It helps modulate your immune system. So it helps balance your immune response to outside influences. It really is a pretty versatile plant, very potent. There's a lot of people that if you're going to be watching, you're going to say, well, this is toxic. Well, I mean, no, yeah, but no, it's not toxic in the way you think it is. It's not toxic in that you can take and drink it. I'm not telling you to. I'm just saying that, it is possible to take and drink a cup of mistletoe tea. You get a few of the sprigs, you crush them up, you put them in hot water, you let it sit 3 to 5 minutes, and then you drink your tea, just like you would any other tea. I am not condoning drinking it. I'm not telling you to drink it. Do your own research for what's good for you, but I'm just saying that it's used all over the world, specifically as a tea for many different types of conditions. Now, one of the things that irritates me the most, and if you start doing like a basic search, and you get the WebMD, you get the AMA, Healthline, all these mainstream pharmaceutical people, they will tell you, well, there's a difference between European mistletoe and American mistletoe. and all the research that I found finds that statement to be kind of asinine, right? I haven't seen anything that states, and later on in this presentation, you'll understand what I mean by this. I haven't seen anything in any of the studies that states that American mistletoe is any different than European mistletoe, other than in the case of which tree it comes from, right? So which tree it comes from is going to be relevant to what properties it has, So if it's in, say, an oak tree, it'll have a lot of the properties of the oak. So the oak is good astringent. It's a good wound healer. It's good for your heart. It's known to help balance your immune system as well. If it's in a maple, maple's known to help balance your blood sugar, right? It's also an immunomodulator. Maple can help with all that. It has other conditions as well that it helps with. So, the mistletoe in and of itself is going to have these specific properties, and that it's good for the seizures, cancer, microbes, and immunomodulation. But then they'll also add whatever properties from the trees they're getting. Does that make sense to anybody? We'll give that a second for that to kind of sink in. Let people, if there's a question, then I'll read the question. So I explained that just fine then. All right. I'm not trying to say, that people, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm explaining it in such a way that makes it easier. Now, we've known for thousands of years that this plant actually does this kind of stuff, right? This is well-known stuff. This is documented history. The plant itself, the leaves and sprig, that big green thing, every part of that there is usable. And you're going to see other parts that are going to tell you that the berries aren't usable, but the berries aren't any more poisonous than the leaves are. They're just part of the tree, so, or the part of that particular shrub, and they are. I mean, I don't know. Do your own research. I'm not telling you to drink it or eat anything. I'm just telling you this is what the science says. You make it tricky when you ask questions like that. I'm just kidding. You don't. All right, so we're going to go on in regards to how long that it's been used. We have the historical uses of mistletoe. Mistletoe has been used for thousands of years. The Greeks initially used it. They used it for things like menstrual cramps and spleen disorders, so for digestive issues. They used it as an aphrodisiac, so to help arousal. They thought and they believed that it helped with general longevity and fertility issues. Now, in regards to longevity, if you think about it logically, if people were getting sick and dying of certain illnesses, cancers, um, other types of diseases, and if the mistletoe was helping with that, then wouldn't that kind of suggest that, yes, in a way it was kind of helping with longevity, because it's helping to take care of these conditions that people had and that were fairly common back in those days. So, and this was thousands of years ago. Clearly, the Greeks were around, 3,000, 4,000 BC, give or take. So it's been a minute. And then the Romans came along. They also used it. They used it for like epilepsy, ulcers. Now that meant ulcerous wounds, internal and external. They used it for general wounds, so they would make a poultice or a paste or even a tea out of it and then would apply it directly to the wound or apply it to their dressings. Dressing being the wound cover, the bandage. And then they would apply it to the wounds that way to help with healing. Now, here's what I think that in regards to that. If you think about the time period, infections were very relevant. People got sick and they got infections and died all the freaking time. So it was very important for them to keep the wounds clean. And of course, they didn't know that back then. I mean, that didn't become a thing until much later. Like early 19th century is when we started figuring out, hey, maybe 20th century actually. Maybe we should start washing our hands, before we start cutting people open, or maybe if we have a wound, we should wash it and clean it, So that would also explain why they were using it for that. Now, it also helped for cramping, general cramping, and they didn't go into really too many detail. It just said it was for cramping and spasms, and then they used it for a cure for poison. Now, I'm not sure exactly which poisons they would have used it for, and I couldn't find anything in any of the lore that stated that it worked for stuff like that, but. Oh, thank you guys for all hitting the like button. I appreciate all 8 of you staying too. That's pretty awesome. I don't really get a lot of people that come here to YouTube and watch me. So it's kind of cool when a lot of you guys, people do show up. So back then, even thousands of years ago, that they knew that there were medicinal properties of this. Now, in some cases, I read that in some of them actually would ferment the mistletoe, and I'm kind of a big fan of fermenting herbal medication. I feel that fermentation makes the herbs more bioavailable both to our bodies, and it helps remove the properties more gently than throwing 75% alcohol in it. You know what I'm saying? So that's my own personal feeling for it. But there's some current science that's also showing that there's some benefits to it as well to be fermented. Now, other historical uses, the Native American peoples also used it. Now, get this, they're Native Americans. If American mistletoe was, and there's the clusters of mistletoes that I was talking about, sorry. There's the clusters of mistletoes that I was talking about. But the Native Americans, they're already here in North America, right? North American mistletoe is clearly not any different because they were using it for almost all the same stuff that people were using it, that the Romans and the Greeks were using it for. So they used it for heart conditions, they used it for tuberculosis and other lung issues, pneumonia, bronchitis. They were using it also to heal wounds and for menstrual issues, immune support, and snake bites. Again, they're with the poison, right? They're with the immune support. They're very consistent in regards to what they both used them for. They were an ocean apart. Clearly, there was no contact between the two. At least that's what history tells us. But they were using the same plant for the same thing. Now, modern pharmaceutical companies are going to tell you that, and if you can do the search right now, they're going to tell you that the American mistletoe is not the same as European mistletoe, and that the American mistletoe is poisonous, whereas the European mistletoe is just fine to use. And some of the things about mistletoe that's coming up next is probably going to really surprise a lot of people. All right, so to clear one thing up that a lot of people ask in regards to mistletoe, and this is kind of an aside. I mean, it was kind of hard to figure out where to put this next part in, but mistletoe, mistletoe and holly. Mistletoe and holly are two very different plants. Now, if you look at the mistletoe on the left, you see how it has the kind of oblong, rounded leaves with the white berries, whereas the holly is the one with the red berries, and it has the pointy leaves. They're usually very shiny. If you see mistletoe, mistletoe is very dull in color, and it's very kind of a rough feeling. You can if you get this PowerPoint presentation, you look at the pictures, you'll be able to see that that's a very rough leaf. Whereas the holly is a very smooth, almost a plasticky feel. If you've ever felt real holly, those barbs are sharp. They're just as sharp as any thistle plant. Now, holly is different. It's not a parasite. Mistletoe is a partially parasitic plant that attaches itself to host trees, while holly is an evergreen shrub or tree, depending on which species of holly there are. Mistletoe is known for its green leaves and white berries, often associated with holiday traditions like kissing under the mistletoe. In contrast, holly has glossy, prickly leaves, and its branches bear red berries. Now, holly's not poisonous either. It has medicinal properties, and I did kind of a brief write-up on holly, but I didn't have time to throw it into the presentation tonight, so it really isn't relevant to tonight's conversation. But if you guys are interested in seeing something on holly, throw that in the comments. That would be really great. If you throw it in the comments, then people can see, if I can see enough interest about holly, maybe I could do it maybe closer to Christmas time, because I still have my 50-state series that I'm working on, which I still have to do Nevada. That one follower was right. Now, the current medicinal uses for mistletoe. Mistletoe has been around for thousands of years. We've known that for a very long time. Mistletoe has been used for thousands of years. We've also known that for a very long time. Well, currently, mistletoe is being used in the pharmaceutical world. Now, that thing in that little box you see on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it's a product called Iscador. Iscador is the #1 selling pharmaceutical anti-cancer drug in Germany. It is used both alone as a standalone treatment for cancer. It's also used in conjunction with conventional treatment for cancer. It is literally a mistletoe extract. That is all it is. It is extracted mistletoe, and it is the #1 anti-cancer drug. So the current medicinal uses, cancer treatments, there's currently 8 different pharmaceutical drugs that are directly made from mistletoe. And one of them, named Iscador, is the #1 used drug for cancer treatment, both complementary and standalone. It's also used after treatment. So people who've had chemotherapy or radiotherapy, they have used mistletoe, other versions of the mistletoe, not just the Iscador, but other versions of the mistletoe as well. I used to have the whole list, and I've done that video somewhere. I don't have it here tonight, but they are used, and it's an actual pharmaceutical prescription. You can see right there, and it is their #1 used, over and above all the chemicals and all the other stuff. Other things that mistletoe is known to help with. It's known to help with diabetes management. It increases your insulin sensitivity and allows for better insulin absorption. So that makes me think, say, if it increases insulin sensitivity and allows for better insulin absorption. I just said just a little bit ago that I believe that fermented mistletoe works better. So, a little bit earlier than that, I stated that maple has been shown to help balance your blood sugar, or also make your body more insulin resistant, or less insulin resistant, and it makes it easier for you to absorb your insulin. So wouldn't it make sense if you were to take maple mistletoe, ferment the maple mistletoe, and then use that for the diabetes management? Because I'm not saying that it would work or it would cure anything. I don't know. What I'm saying is fermentation is shown to help with a lot of things, and it makes a lot of the bioavailability of the compounds from the herbs more able to be absorbed. So if you would do that and then use maple, because as we know, mistletoe will absorb some of the properties of the tree that it's on. It just kind of seems to make sense that it would help more for that. That's just my own thinking on that, just the logic. Sure, you can tincture this. Yeah, this Teresa asked, can you tincture this? Yes, you can tincture this one. This is a very easy one to tincture. Mistletoe is available all over the internet. I mean, you can. We used to have it in stock, but we haven't had any in a very long time, um, and we just haven't ordered any more. But it is used all over the world just as a tea. You don't even have to use it as a as a prescription medication. Use it as a tea, make it into capsules, turn it into a tincture. The options are fairly unlimited. There's a wide variety of ways you can use it. One of the other things that it's very well known for is for its cardiovascular health. It helps to improve cardiovascular health in people. It balances your blood sugar, both low and high. Now, what I mean by that is if you have a heart condition or cardiovascular condition, and you have low blood pressure, it'll actually raise your blood pressure. It's known to do that, so it actually affects your entire body. However, conversely, if you have high blood pressure and you take the same thing, it'll lower your blood pressure. Now, there's only one other herb that I know of. I'm sure there's more that do it, but there's only one other herb that I know of that does that specifically for the heart, and that would be hawthorn berry. So that makes me think that they're going to approach the each one of these is going to approach the cardiovascular system a bit differently. So if you were to use mistletoe in conjunction with hawthorn, and it's kind of interesting that I said that because I just got a recipe last night as I was doing a bunch of research on mistletoe. I found a recipe that's going to be in my recipe book um, for a healthy heart, and it only had 3 herbs, two of which it was 2 parts hawthorn, 1 part mistletoe, and 1 part another herb, but I can't think of what it is. So you only have 3 herbs in it, but each one is going to affect the heart a little bit differently. So with mistletoe, it balances your blood pressure, both low and high. It also prevents the shrinking of your arteries and veins in your blood vessels. So when you get older, your blood vessels and your arteries tend to shrink, which increases your blood pressure because you have a smaller diameter for the blood to flow through. It makes it harder for the blood to flow. So what it does is it'll actually prevent the shrinkage of the arteries and the blood vessels, and it will strengthen their function as well. So it makes them a bit stronger. Now, it's also known to remove plaque and other oxidants from the bloodstream. It is a very powerful antioxidant. Now, I don't know it. The word oxidant is what I call body rust. So when it gets into your body, it causes different types of rust on the inside of your body, which is why we get inflammation and illness. So what this is known to do, it helps remove that. It'll remove the plaque and also the other toxins and stuff that build up in your cardiovascular system and cause problems. More recent science is showing that it's good for anxiety and stress management. Now, I did see when I was looking at the history that the Romans would use it for people that suffered from epilepsy. So it's used for that, but it acts as a potent sedative or a brain balancer. So much the same way that St. John's wort works. St. John's wort works in that it helps your brain produce the feel-good, I call them the feel-good chemicals better. So the serotonin, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, all that stuff, all that stuff that you need. The DMT, because your brain produces DMT as well. It actually helps your body produce that. It makes your brain produce it a little bit better. And it's currently right now, in some cases, it's being used for insomnia, stress, anxiety, and depression because it's showing to help with depression symptoms. So that's not too bad. I mean, you think about it. That's one plant, one specific plant. Now, granted, it's coming off of different trees, but for the most part, they're just using oak mistletoe for this. So that's 4 things we've discussed from just one plant. So it's almost a pharmacy by itself. So it helps with cancer, right? Both as a standalone treatment and as in conjunction with complementary medicine. Or it is complementary medicine. It works for diabetes management, and there's real studies for this that show this stuff. It helps with cardiovascular health, so it balances your blood pressure. It also helps with anxiety and stress. So it's affecting 4 different things. Not only that, it's known to help with premenstrual syndrome. So even though the Romans used it back then for that, and the Native Americans used it back then for that, it's still used today specifically for that. It's used to help with excessive bleeding and cramping from PMS and other uterine type conditions. So there's other types of conditions with the uterus and the female reproductive system, and the mistletoe helps to alleviate a lot of those, make it a lot less of a problem, if that makes sense. Hey, Alan, good to see you. Sugar addiction is real. John Rice said sugar addiction is real. Alan Harvey stopped in. Hi, Alan. So it's also used for skin conditions. So you can make it as that if you've watched any of the videos in regards to how to make a lotion or a salve or a balm, you would use it the same way you would use any of those. So you'd grind it up into a powder, or at least as powdered as you can get it, and put it in with your oil and whatever other herbs you'd like to use. So you could use it with St. John's wort or plantain, chickweed, any of those other healing herbs. And make a salve out of it. And it's been known in creams and lotions. It's used for psoriasis, eczema, rashes, wounds, and other related skin conditions. So it would even help if you got cuts and scrapes, because it just helps to keep it clean, and it allows for the cells to replenish faster. Cindy Thomas says, I wonder if it would be okay to take with heart stents. Well, I mean, it's not going to clot your blood. So, and a part of from what I understand, the issue with a heart stent is that, you don't want anything that's going to help clot your blood. But there is something you might want to know. We could do a side note on that one, and I want you to do some research. It's not mistletoe, but I don't know if it would counterindicate. So you would have, I wouldn't say ask a doctor because they're not going to know. You could ask you can ask a naturopathic doctor. They would know. But there is something I found out for people with heart stents, and you can do the research. I'm not telling you to take it, but it's going to be in one of my shorts here coming up on YouTube. We're going to talk about the ginkgo biloba tree. Ginkgo biloba tree is the oldest tree species in the world. One of the compounds that it has is I don't know what the name of the compound is, but the compound makes your blood less sticky. So it doesn't thin your blood. So if you're already on blood thinners, it doesn't counterindicate with blood thinners, but it actually makes it so your blood doesn't stick to stuff as much. So, so that's going to be less likely to stick to stents and things like that, if that makes sense. Ask your naturopath about mistletoe. I mean, it's a powerful heart herb, but and if it would help with your blood vessels, I can't say, I'm not allowed to, but I can't see where it would hurt. I'm not telling you to take it though, so you have to ask your doctor. So in regards to that, it really has a lot of different medicinal properties. It's able to be used for a lot of different things. It has a wide variety of versatility, and it doesn't seem to counterindicate with other medications. In fact, it helps complement many indications. I did happen to pull up one study, cancer medicine. What they did was they were testing cancer specifically against small cell lung cancer. And what they found was mistletoe lectin, which is a phenolic compound or a plant compound, lectin is, that inhibits the growth of MYC-amplified small cell lung cancer cells. And it was in vivo, it wasn't an in vitro study. So it was kind of very promising to show. And they use it, it's used elsewhere. Just here in the United States, it's sold as a supplement. You can go buy it anywhere you want. You can buy it online, you can buy it at health food stores, but they won't tell you that it's good for anything. So that is the downside to it. So we have a few more minutes. That is pretty much all I have. So we can make it maybe a half an hour show on Sundays. Because we got to try to keep the attention span up in regards to that. So if anybody has any questions, now would be the time to ask them. Nobody has any questions, really? Can't tell me I covered it that clearly. Well, okay, so when you say it that way, I'm a big fan of no warning labels, and but here's another thing that I know. I know that they're trying. There are some people that are trying to push the right to try. When is the best time to forage mistletoe? Well, typically in the winters, because that's the easiest time to get it out of the tree. That's when we would do it. After all the leaves fell, that was the easiest time to get it out of the tree. And because when it's up in those high oaks, man, it's a long ways up, and there was no way in heck I was climbing up there just to get some stinking mistletoe. It was a lot easier to shoot it out with a 20 gauge. Can you remember the third herb in that formula? I cannot. I was thinking about it. Um, if you go over to my Patreon page, the herb guide, what I will do, I have it on the phone that I'm currently videotaping this particular show on, so I can't look it up right now without interrupting the live. But what I will do is here's what I will do. If for those of you who want to go over to my Patreon, this is free. All the PowerPoint presentations are free because I post them on YouTube, so it doesn't seem fair to put the PowerPoint presentation, and then charge people to see it. But you want to see the other stuff, that's stuff you have to pay for. I'll put the recipe for that I found. It was 2 parts hawthorn, 1 part mistletoe, and 1 part another herb, and I just can't think of it. I know I should be able to, but it's been such a long day. So that's what I will do. And that is a good question, Sarah. So the third herb, yeah, I will put that over there on the herb guy, theherbguy.com at Patreon, on my Patreon page. And so you have to go to Patreon and then the herb guy, and I will make sure to put that recipe on there. And then if you want to look on that page as well, there's also instructions on how to make an actual tincture, like a professional strength tincture. And so that way you'll have the ability to be able to make your own tincture if you really want. Because the tincture, to make your own alcohol-based tincture is free. And even if I know people hear they hear the word alcohol and they think, oh my gosh, I can't take it because it's an alcohol tincture. Yes, an alcohol tincture, you're not getting that much alcohol in it. You're really not. There isn't really enough alcohol to affect anything. You could put it in some water, unless you're taking Antabuse or something that's an anti-alcohol drug. You can't. It's not going to counterindicate, and you can put the alcohol in like juice or water. So Sarah asked, and all parts are usable. All parts are usable. So you just take the entire plant. They don't they don't really have roots. So when you pull it out, you're going to have some little tendrils or whatever, but you're not going to get anything out of the tree itself. The wood is too hard. So whatever little bit falls off, that's your mistletoe. And and remember, if you go to the Patreon page, it tells you need as little surface area as possible. So once you dry it out, you need to grind it down as much as possible. Get it into as fine a powder as you can, because that way that's going to make a lot of those compounds a lot more bioavailable. Now, if you're not ready to grind it up right away, save it as whole as possible. So when you're going to save it for drying, save it in as big a sprigs as you can and keep them all together as much as you can. The reason why is that will hold in a lot of the compounds. Because the minute you start grinding them up, a lot of those essential and volatile oils are going to start evaporating out. You're going to lose them. But the plant will hold those in itself as long as you can keep them, whole. A hot drink will evaporate the alcohol. A hot drink, yes, as long as you keep the hot drink over 177 degrees. So you could put it in your coffee, which is usually over that. And again, when you're looking at 10 drops, the drops themselves aren't going to be really all that much. In some cases, some of the studies I've read, your bread has more alcohol in it than the droppers of extracts. So, because even bread has alcohol. So people that say they can't have alcohol, if they're eating bread, they're eating alcohol. I mean, as long as it's bread and loaf. Anybody have any more questions? This might be a very, very short one tonight. Which wouldn't necessarily disappoint me because, I did put some of that. But, here's what we have to do right now. There's 8 of you. You 8 get to decide. What do we talk about next week? What am I going to put together next week to the next week's video? This will give everybody an idea. You have like 3 minutes at most. Come up with something. That was a lot of information. Thyroid, there's one. What about thyroid? Be more specific. There's a lot to talk about on thyroid stuff. Hurry, we're running out of time. Come on, guys. There's 9 of you now. What are we talking about next week? Okay, so hypo or thyroid. Okay, so we have thyroid. thyroid stuff. I can only put together so much on that because that's a huge topic. Okay, regulate thyroid. So we weren't talking about somebody who has a hyperthyroid. Saffron's a good one. Anything is good. Can't think of anything right now. Regulate thyroid. So we have 2 votes for regulating thyroid, 1 vote for saffron. We have 8 people. Cindy, you can't say thyroid first and then change it. You can change your vote, I don't care. So now we're up to 2 people for saffron and 1 people for thyroid. All right, so we have exactly 30 seconds. Well, in 30 seconds, at 36:30, we're going to end it out. Herbs and their benefits. I don't have enough time for that. So we have 2 for saffron. Herbs and their benefits. YouTube wouldn't let me record that long. Mitchell. There's a cat in the yard. She let the dogs out. I guess we have the next 2 weeks topical topics. Put the timer above. So okay, so we're gonna do saffron, I suppose. Saffron we'll do saffron next Sunday. Next Sunday, the 2nd or 3rd, whatever it is, we will do saffron, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then apparently the Sunday after that, if I remember, which means it'll be up to you guys to remember, the Sunday after that, we'll talk about thyroid. It's 2-2. Well, so far it's saffron though. The votes are 2-2. There's 8 of you. Come on, you guys. There's 8 of you. Only 4 of you have voted. Somebody give me a tiebreaker. Excuse me. Sorry. Sarah will remind me. She is my best reminder. All right. So in 20 seconds, Cindy will remind me too. 10, 9, 8, 7. There's 3 for saffron. All right. Saffron it is. You guys have a great week. Enjoy your day tomorrow, too. Happy Memorial Day. Kind of ironic.